Good evening, everyone. We'll just give it a few moments here so people can join the meeting. We still have people entering, so we'll just give it a few more moments here. All right, well, good evening, everyone. Before we launch into our meeting, I am going to turn it over to Mariana, who will give an announcement for our Spanish speakers this evening.
Hola, buenas noches. A todos los que deseen escuchar esta reunión en español, pueden hacerlo seleccionando el icono por debajo en la pantalla y van a poder elegir ahí el idioma de preferencia. Y muchas gracias. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. We will reconvene to open session right now. And first, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. And so as our usual process, if you have a flag, please look at your flag. If you do not have a flag, please turn to the right. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I second.
Any questions or comments on the agenda this evening? All right, we will do our roll call vote. Julie?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
Angie? Aye. Sorry. And Dylan?
Aye.
Thank you. Now we'll move, Angie, can you, any actions on items heard in closed session?
There's no action taken.
Thank you. And then we will move right into our discussion and action items tonight. Our first item is education services. This is a discussion and possible action on comprehensive high school rebranding process. Per our usual process, we do generally take actions at the front of items. Is there anyone who would like to make an action on this item before we?
I would.
Okay, go ahead, Patrick.
I move to reinstate Anlin High School as the name of the comprehensive high school.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and this is Tony's item. Can you please do your overview?
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. I'm sure many people in the audience and the board know the background to this item, but I will do a brief background just so that anyone who's new to the meeting tonight understands what we're doing. So at our meeting, at the board's meeting on March the 10th, the Board of Trustees approved a fiscal recovery plan that included the consolidation of the two comprehensive high school campuses onto one campus. And then as a follow-up at their meeting on March 16th, the board approved the rebranding of that consolidated high school campus on the Annalee and Laguna, that high school on the Annalee and Laguna campuses. And the goal of that was that the board was wanting to create a unified community on that one campus. At the May 5th board meeting, the board reviewed additional fiscal information that had come to the district and voted to pause the rebranding process. And then at their meeting on May 12th, they voted to use the name West County as a bridge name until the rebranding process could be completed this fall. Follow up to that, since school has started, there have been, the student survey process began. We got feedback on the survey and decided that we would implement a new survey. That survey was given to students on November 18th and 19th. And tonight in your packet, you have the results of that student survey. And in addition, you also have the information that the board reviewed at the November 10th meeting relative to the budget and the different scenarios that the board was considering. So in terms of the rebranding survey results in your packet, you can see that there was one question that the board asked students, and that was, what would you like the name of the merged school to be? And you can then see that there were 1,148 total responses. Of those responses, 52% of those responses said Annalee, 32.1% said West County, 9.4% of the students abstained, and 6.1% of those students answered other to that question. On your sheet, it does actually give you the actual number of students that answered each of those questions. So there were a total, as I said, of 1,148 total responses. We actually did give the survey over 2 days because there were some classes that didn't get a chance to take it all on Thursday. So you can see that breakdown. There were 147 students who were absent, who did not take the survey. And then there, in addition to that, were 108 that chose not to participate at all in the survey. They were present at school, but did not participate. So there altogether, that's a total of 1,403 total students. It does say on the sheet that there were 93% that participated. That 93% represents the responses plus the number of students that were absent on that day. If you take out the students that were absent, there were actually 82% of the students actually took the survey. But there were 7% of those students that chose not to respond at all. I don't know if the board has questions on the survey itself.
Any questions from any of the board members? Yeah, how was it determined that students chose not to participate? I have a question because I've heard reports from people, a number of community members with children who said that their child was not given the option to participate. So can you clarify just how the survey was administered and why that may have happened?
The survey was given during fourth period. Teachers had, actually students were all sent the link via their email. So all students got the link to take the survey via their email. And teachers were asked to give students time during their fourth period class to take it. There were students, I have some numbers here. There were some students that were absent or did not take the survey itself. But there weren't any teachers that didn't actually give the survey or give time for the survey. We have a list of all of the teachers and the number of students in each of their classes, and then how many of the students in each of those classes responded to the survey. So there were students in some classes that just didn't take the survey at all during that time. Does that make sense?
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's not consistent with what I've heard from some families in the community, but if that's how it worked, then. So Jeannie, and just questions right now, then we'll open up for public comment, and then we'll bring it back to board comment. So we're not taking board comment right now. This is specific to questions.
I'll make my comment later then.
Okay, thank you, Jeannie. Any other questions? All right, we will open it up for discussion on this item, and before we bring it back to the board for board comment. And so just as a reminder for people who may not have attended our meetings in the past, it is important for you to raise your hand. We treat the raise your hand feature as the comment card for the evening. And so the way we know that you would like to make a comment on this item is for you to raise your hand. We give it a minute or so here right now where I just talk and try to fill up this minute so that we can make sure that you have enough time to raise your hand, at which time we'll look at who the last speaker was, and then we will bring all those folks into the room. So we will need to just give it a second. If you feel like at all you want to make a comment on this item, please raise your hand right now, because this is the opportunity to get yourself in the queue to be able to make a comment on this item this evening. And I will give it a couple more seconds because it looks like we are still getting hands raised. So I will just give everyone the opportunity to make sure that they can participate this evening. And looks like we are still going up. And we're still going up. Okay, it looks like we are holding steady at 40 speakers, and Lisa Howard looks like she is the last speaker to bring into the room we have 41. Greg Jacobs just joined again.
I think, Kelly, give them a little bit longer because I think the queue gets gets waylaid when a lot of people raise their hand.
Okay, well, it looks like we're holding steady at 41. So Greg Jacobs will be our last speaker to bring into the room. And at 41 speakers, what is the speaking time that we want to give for the group of individuals that would like to address the board? 1 minute? Okay, everyone, NG, 1 minute. So we'll bring them in and each speaker will have 1 minute.
Okay, sorry, I'm just getting I took pictures of everybody's names so I can do this. And I'm sorry, 1 minute?
Yeah, 1 minute.
Gotta get that clock ready really quick. All right, our first speaker is going to be Greg Champion, followed by Maria McCallum, Kara Mendez, Lorraine Hines, Patrick Fitzpatrick. Those will be the first 5. If I can just friendly reminder to everybody, please do not unmute yourself until I ask you to unmute yourself. You move around on my screen and it is hard to follow. And then when you are done speaking, please mute yourself because I'm trying to bring the next person into the room. It would help me ever so much. And let me start my share screen. Greg, you have the floor. You go ahead and unmute yourself, Greg.
And I'm not a technical person, but I hit the key, and so hopefully that
We
works.
can hear you.
Okay. I'd like to begin, first of all, by offering you a traditional greetings from the Marianas Islands, where my mother was from, where I lived for 14 years, and it is truly a sign of respect. Buenas noches, Maniluhu, Mananahu, Tau Sebastopol, Oahu si Goro Champion. So what I said is, good evening, my brothers, my sisters, and my elders of Sebastopol. And then, of course, my name is Gregory Champion. So I offer my greetings to the ladies and gentlemen of the board, members of the Sebastopol City Council, who I hope are watching because this is truly a community issue that we're discussing. Parents of both schools, students, and fellow alumni. As I said, my name is Gregory Champion. I am a 1970, it's a while ago, graduate of Amley High School. That's a distinction I hope tomorrow's graduates.
Thank you for your comments.
As well. Is it time to wrap up?
Your time's up. Next speaker is Lorraine, followed by Kara.
Hi, I'm a 1981 graduate. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can hear you.
Okay. I am a 1981 graduate, and I hold Anley dear and near to my heart. My oldest brother graduated in 1964. There's 17 years, 5 days difference, and there's 4 of us that went to that school and lived the history. I want the generations of today and tomorrow to experience the same small school atmosphere and the quality education that I was so lucky to have. Sebastopol means a lot to me, even though I can't live there anymore. It means a lot to me. The heritage does not need to go away. It's been this name for 113 years, and I think it would be an absolute malarkey session to get rid of the name of Anley. Anley represents quality education, and the quality education is what these students and students to come need. If there's a need to go back to have 2 campuses, then El Molino should be reinstated.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker is Kara Mendez. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. Just 2 quick things. I think it would have been very important and very telling to have had the following information on the survey results. What was the percentage of students that were former Anley students? What was the percentage of students that were former El Molino students who were taking the survey? I think there's some transparency that's lacking, probably on purpose. I think that would tell a totally different story than the agenda Tony's clearly pushing. We all know that the former Anley student population makes up over 60% of the current population at West County High School. The second thing, while I think that current students' opinions are extremely important, please keep in mind they'll be there anywhere from now 6 months to 3.5 years. Why wasn't there a community survey sent out from the district to the taxpayers and the registered voters in the district? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Patrick Fitzpatrick. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, and then I'm bringing Lynn Gleason, Gillian Hayes, Linda Teague Helton, and Jess Lee Mills into the room as well. Patrick, you have the floor.
Good evening. I am Patricia Fitzpatrick.
Oh, sorry.
Class of 82. I want to share that I have been in the same situation of having my school close and be forced to move to another school. Me and most of my schoolmates had been at that school since our older siblings had begun attending years before us. Our parents fought for us just as El Molino parents have fought for their kids. The district couldn't find funds to keep it open, though. However, there were no school name changes, but we all adjusted to being in more crowded classrooms at the schools we were sent to. But there was and is a silver lining, as the friends I made at that school, I am still friends with today. El Molino students, for whom I can relate, will have the opportunity to make friends for life as we all did. And hopefully at some point, El Molino students will be able to go back to an El Molino campus. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Lynn Gleason. You have the floor.
Good evening, board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. The vote is in from the students, and Anley should remain Anley. I see no point in changing the school name. The alumni will fix what has been created the past year. Besides the history and traditions, Anley has been part of our community for years. I strongly believe that El Molino will return in the future. Why change the name of a school just for the fact that for now we only have one high school? That's all.
Thank you. If I could ask everybody a favor, when you're done talking, if you can lower your hand. I can't do all the things right now. There's too many people and my screen keeps moving. Next speaker is Gillian Hayes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So first of all, I'd like to say it's ridiculous to give us 1 minute on this important topic. I think that you absolutely should have planned to spend more time with us tonight to hear, before your motion and decision was made, the public comment. We are voters, and the public comment should inform your decision. The prior action items you've done before and made motions are after the staff report given. So tonight you said it was common practice, not true. Check your recordings. The staff report lacked necessary information for you to make your decision. What's the timeline of the renaming? What's the process to ensure the NCAA will accept the change again? Are we considering to rename El Molino? There's so much that's unknown. Tonight, I'm going to tell you again, Jeannie and Kelly, if you don't want to listen to your constituents and do your jobs, that you should be stepping down from your position. In fact, over 3,000 of us voters signed a petition during a pandemic saying that you were not representing us, and you continue to do so.
Thank you for your comment, Gillian.
It's time to step up.
Next speaker, Jessie Mills, followed by Linda Teague Helton.
Hi, Jessie Mills here. First of all, I agree wholeheartedly with what Kara pointed out, is that this board is making this decision based on what students think is important and what the name should be. Although I think it is important to take that into consideration. At the end of the day, this isn't up to the students. They're all kids. They're not adults. They're not registered voters. They're not taxpayers. They should not be making this decision. It should be us. It should be the taxpayers. It should be the community members. In addition to that, you guys voted back in March to change the name of both Annalee and El Molino, and the placeholder was West County High. So I'm not sure legally how you can then vote again to change the name back to Annalee when you have already voted to get rid of that name. You have to rescind the vote that you made back in March. But again, you're not following proper process. And you need to give us more than a minute to talk about this serious issue. So do not change the name right now. You need to wait until the SCO report's back. You need to wait for new board members on this board. And you need to make sure that these kids are not going to get screwed over by college.
Next speaker is Linda Teague Helton, followed by Justin Brown Woods, Max Broome, Just Bill, and Carolyn Bowen. Linda, you have the floor.
Thank you. It's Linda Ty Helton. Honestly, I think a minute is plenty of time because you've heard all this before. The Annalee community has rallied. We've sent you a petition with over 4,000 signatures on it to keep the Annalee name. You've had innumerable emails from supporters of not only alumni, but community members who have the best interest of not only the students, but the town, the history of the school. It's important for us to go forward and make it what it was, make it a great school, go back to the Annalee name, and rally around the kids to do that. The money needs to be put in the students' best interest, and changing the name is not that. Thank you very much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker is Justin Brown Woods, followed by Max Broome. And again, a reminder, please do not unmute yourself until I ask you to.
Good morning or good evening, board members, community members. Let me be the first to say happy Hanukkah to our friends in the Jewish community that are celebrating. I wanted to just take this 50 seconds to say thanks to some people, because we recognize how the board is probably going to vote. And I've already said my piece last time, and I don't really want to continue. But I want to give thanks to two people. The first person is Mia, who works in HR. Mia has sat on some really hard board meetings the past few years. And my interactions with Mia while I was an employee with the district were nothing but wonderful. So I want to say thanks to Mia for all the hard work she's doing. And I hope she has a really good holiday season. And then I want to say thanks to Trustee Lewis. It's no surprise what Trustee Lewis is going through right now in her personal life, yet she continues to show up for students in our community faithfully every single day. And I'm really thankful for people like her in my life and in students' lives. So I just want to recognize those two human beings and let them know that they're in my heart in some difficult community meetings. So thanks to both of you. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Justin. Next speaker is Max Broome and then Carolyn Bowen. Bill, I'm going to have to bring you into the room because your Zoom is not updated. Max, you have the floor.
Can you see, like, I need more people?
Max, are you with us?
Yeah, okay, sorry. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, I just unmuted. Good evening, everybody. My name is Max Broome. I'm a Forestville resident, El Molino alumnus. I'm on the Forestville School Board. And I just wanted to chime in real quick. I got a great text by my daughter who's a freshman in college. She texted me this really cool article about dinosaurs. Anyways, it talked about, taking sides on issues, and it came down to applying the golden rule, meaning, if we all treated others as we wish to be treated ourselves, then decency and stability would have to prevail. It's a nice concept. I just wanted to say that, if we want to keep what momentum we have with the West County or Westco name, I think it's a good idea to do that. And I see that.
Thank you, Max, for your comment.
I see that my time is up, and I just hope that people, the board, considers keeping the momentum we have and keep the name Westco. Thank you.
Next speaker is Carolyn, and then Bill, you're in the room, so you'll be able to unmute yourself right after Carolyn. Carolyn, you have the floor. Hold on. Now can you unmute? There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm also hoarse, so please excuse me. Carolyn Bowen, Anley class of 1980, 29 years of also property tax paying resident. I have relocated now, however, but I've been around forever. Speaking tonight in support of retaining Anley High School Tigers. It's important to retain its historical community roots relative to its founding name. Also, with that said, El Molino campus should not be stripped of its historical roots relative to its founding name. Whatever the use, El Molino should be preserved, and hopefully El Molino will return. That said, community, current students, Anley alums, near and far, local businesses, supporters have spoken. Anley needs to remain uninterrupted as it's been for 114 years. Lastly, voting to retain Anley as Anley is the next right thing to do. Honor and highlight the Anley students, as well as honor and highlight the El Molino students that are living this difficult transition in real time. We need to give some faith to the students and to the staff to support.
Thank you for your comments, Carolyn. Next speaker is Bill. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, and then I'm bringing Jim Murphy, Tim Forsland, Fred Ayers, and David Sword into the room. Bill, you have the floor.
Okay. I just want to thank the board. Sorry, I'm kind of emotional about this. For the hard job that they do. I know it's very difficult. Yeah, I think you need to do the right thing and reinstate Anley. Please do the right thing. Reinstate Anley. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker is Jim Murphy. You have the floor, and Bill, I'll go ahead and remove you from that room in a second.
Thank you.
Jim, are you with us?
It hit me.
Bill, could you go ahead and mute yourself, please?
Okay, am I here?
You're still there. I'm just, there's Jim. Hi, Jim.
Okay. Good evening. I'm an Anley of class of 1967 graduate. This agenda matter is not just about the kids. It's a far-reaching community matter. It's about erasing 114 years of commemorated local high school history. It's about erasing a lifetime of symbiotic relationships for thousands of former students and past and present members of the community that began in an early California history. You're about to vote on whether or not to modify history While this action is entirely within your purview to do so as a school board, ethically, morally, and consciously, your alliance to the community you serve is to preserve the integrity of the 114 years of Annalee history. Erasing the Annalee antiquity is so very wrong. So please, I implore you to keep and save Annalee.
Thank you, Jim, for your comment. Next speaker, Tim Forthland. You have the floor.
Good evening. My name is Tim Forsland, and I'm a teacher at West County High School. This is my 25th year of teaching in the district, 24 of which were at the Annalee High School campus. I have lived in Sebastopol for 20 years, with both of my children having attended Annalee High School. In short, Annalee High School has been a tremendous part of who I am for half my life, and I have a strong appreciation for the history of the school and its connection to Sebastopol. With that said, I am strongly opposed to the possible decision to change the names back to Annalee High School. From the start of this process, students and community members were told that they would be creating a new identity for the consolidated high school, and they would be participants in this process. This was a promise made to all of us as the district voted to create a new identity for the consolidated school. I don't think reversing this is a good reflection on the district and what our word is worth. Throughout this process, I have witnessed students coming together in the classroom, theater, and sports fields, making the best of a difficult situation and finding their footing as a new school. I couldn't even tell you who's an El Molino or Annalee student anymore in my classroom. The students have shown that they can embrace a difficult challenge by working together and creating a new school as one. The school
Thank you, Tim, for your comment.
Still retain its part of history. Nobody is taking away our past.
Our next speaker is Fred Ayers. I'm sorry, you guys, the board's directed me for 1 minute, so I'm going to let you kind of wrap it up, but I'll be doing my best.
Hi, I think everybody understands that you're just doing your job, and it's a hard one. My name is Fred Ayers, and I have no dog in this fight. I did move up into this county until I went to Sonoma State University, proud graduate of Central Union High School. I am an official, and I'm speaking today because I noticed somebody had a different uniform on. It's hard for me to get used to West County. I talked to this young man and said, how do you feel about this? He wasn't very happy with it. I know we live in a society now where, everybody gets a medal and we can't hurt anybody's feelings. And sometimes you think you're taking the high road when you hurt everybody's feelings a little bit, hoping that everyone's going to forgive you. No one's going to forgive this mistake. I want to say that you made promises, but you made promises, going back to what Tim just said, you made promises to people, but you didn't promise them anything you told them. The survey should have been taken before this decision was made so you can arrive at a decision. You don't make a decision and then decide later on what to do. I hope you keep Annalee High School as a neutral person. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is David Sword, followed by Jason Fernandez, Caitlin Kalua, and I apologize if I butcher names, Rick Davis, Heidi Mickelson, and John Vigil. David, you have the floor.
It's understandable the Annalee community is bothered by the idea of having the name of their school changed. However, that really pales in comparison to the El Molino community losing not just a name, but our entire school and, most importantly, the special community we had for over 55 years. The truth is, this is no longer their school. It is now collectively our school, not Annalee and not El Molino. The lack of empathy during this whole process has been frustrating, to say the least. Moving forward with a brand new name seems like the smallest concession and demonstrable display of empathy that the community can display. The presumption that somehow changing the name from Annalee erases or modifies history is frankly preposterous and disingenuous. Changing the name does not change history or eliminate history. There are many ways to preserve and display the history of both Annalee and El Molino high schools. Consider for a moment the type of booster organization, local business, or alumni association would really threaten to drop their support as well as funding for their local high school over this. That is not the type of person I endeavor to be.
Next speaker is Jason Fernandez, followed by Caitlin.
You guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect. My name's Jason Fernandez. I'm a proud Annalee graduate of 2004. I'm a fourth generation Annalee graduate and a proud local business owner as well. I'm got the next generation, our fifth generation of Annalee students, my two sons, and hopefully can remain Tigers as well. I hope that the board votes yes on the motion tonight and keep our local historic high school and the name it deserves as Annalee High School. I put a lot of effort into keeping Annalee High School. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to our local community members. It means a lot to our alumni. And it means a lot to everyone I know on this board. It means a lot to the community. I can't reiterate that enough. I've been in the heart of this since the very beginning, and I know from the constituents that I have as customers, friends, and family that the name of Annalee High School is very important, and many people hold it so dear to their heart that they're willing to go to the ends of the earth to keep it that way. Thank you for my time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Caitlin.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Kalua, Annalee High School graduate of 2007. Overall, it's been deeply disturbing and disappointing to see the haste of the renaming decision this year. And ultimately, I know it's a very difficult position that everyone has been in, really to have the complete erasure of both high schools essentially on this board's lap. Renaming and rebranding is a decision that impacts the longstanding legacies of both high schools. And quite frankly, the rebranding that you're considering disregards the investments made by this community that with frivolous proposed replacement of facilities that took years to fund and replace. If Annalee does retain its name, I sincerely hope that the legacy of El Molino can be reflected in some way. And if a new name is pursued, or in this case, quite frankly, West County stays, I sincerely hope the legacies of both high schools can be honored and that features such as the artwork, that gives the school its character stay intact. So ultimately, thank you for the opportunity to comment tonight.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Rick Davis. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Good evening from the Valley of the Sun. First off, I'd like to thank the board members for all their efforts in this troubled time. I am not an alumni of Annalee. I am the son of one, the husband of one, the father of one, and many of my family members are. My legacy is South. I'm from Petaluma. That tradition is strong and difficult and understanding. We live in a culture where we decide we can cancel heritage whenever we want. Board, you sit in a terrible time right now. History does not need to repeat itself. History needs to maintain itself. So please use your votes wisely and understand that legacy and generation, even though we don't live in the county anymore, goes forever. So please understand it. Annalee needs to remain Annalee. Hope you all have a great holiday season. Good night from the Valley of the Sun.
Thank you, Rick, for your comment. Our next speaker is Heidi Mickelson.
Thank you. My name is Heidi Mickelson. I am one of the ag teachers at Annalee High School, or West County High School, sorry, but previously at Annalee High School, but that doesn't matter. I wasn't able to attend last meeting. Apparently it was pretty comical because I was leading the CTE Advisory Committee meeting, which is something pretty exciting for our CTE group. But I have to say, I'm pretty disappointed by this motion and the action that's about to be made. The work that has been done by staff, counselors, admin, etc., to change the name to West County has been tremendous. A couple weeks ago, it was mentioned that it would not be fair if Elmo came back and Annalee wasn't able, and they got to keep the name, but Annalee wasn't able to be there. So why not go back to Annalee if and when that happens? If we are one school, keep it West County. I want to thank Angie and Dylan for being strong through all this as well. I completely agree with Mr. Forsland. Kids have been united with West County, so stop making commitments you can't keep. And seniors are going through hell because of this. Imagine juniors too.
Thank you, Heidi, for your comments. Next speaker is John Vigil. John, are you? Oh, here, I have to ask you. Can you unmute yourself now, John?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is John Vigil. I class of 1980, represented the school competitively and academically for many years and take great pride in being a Annalee Tiger. And through all this process that you guys are going through, I just have never heard of any school having to be renamed because a consolidating school is coming in. It makes no sense to destroy history and all the accomplishments of the other people, Annalee alumni, to just make a couple people happy for a short amount of time. Don't destroy the Anley history that we've all created, and let's keep the Anley name. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ann Conwell, followed by Teresa Lydell, Dorothy Nagel, Chris Kahn, and Donna. Ann, you have the floor.
Hi, this is can you hear me?
Yes.
This is actually Savannah Conwell, and I'm a sophomore at West County High School. If we go back to Annalee, we are forgetting all of the work we have put in this year to help build up the name West County. Losing this new identity will set us back a whole year socially and economically. We have used all this money to buy rebranding supplies, and yet if we lose our new name, this will all be erased. But more importantly, if we go back to Annalee, you are erasing the last piece of identity our El Molino students have left at this new campus. If we were going to hold Annalee as an option, why was El Molino not an option for a name change? There was no representation of El Molino in that survey, and that should prove my point that El Molino students are being left to slip through the cracks. We are working together to create new history. We have been put through so much the last few years. We are the ones being shook around with your indecisiveness on this issue. Please let us be us. Let us be West County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Teresa. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Dylan's texting me.
Oh, Let's, careful people. Teresa, are you with us? Moving on to Dorothy. Can you go ahead and unmute yourself? Moving on to Chris Kahn. Are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. You have the floor.
Thank you. I mean, I understand the outcome of the name to Anley was predetermined long before any of this happened there. We have a certain board member who has been wanting to destroy El Molino for the last, decade and a half now. But there's a few things I need to point out. One, the survey was flawed as the Anley students vastly outnumbered the El Molino students, and El Molino wasn't even an option. So this survey you're putting is actually moot. It does not integrate these two schools in any way, shape, or form by keeping Anley instead of West County. If you choose Anley, then you are disregarding the promises you made and are ignoring any consideration of the West County families that live outside of Sebastopol. There are more communities than just Sebastopol that you represent. As a reminder, my parents went to Anley. I, my sister, and my kids went to El Molino, so we are actually integrated between both schools. But we're making the decision to go from the West County, which actually the kids have been embracing, and I've been on the campus, and I've been out there with the kids. It's not a good call. Please stay with West County. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Our next speaker, Teresa, are you with us? Let's go with Donna. Are you with us?
I am. This is Donna. Okay, I'm on.
You are on.
First, I want to thank the board for your service. This has been so difficult, and I appreciate your efforts. My previous letter listed 2 reasons for keeping the Anley name. The first being historic. When my great-grandparents settled here in the 1850s, this area was known as the Anley Township, called by Jasper O'Farrell. So the name has great historic value to all of us. Secondly is the economic value the name has. I know people who have moved here from Marin County so that their students could go to Anley High School because it has such an outstanding reputation. Now I have a third reason: to honor the majority of the students, 52% voting to keep Anley. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Dorothy, are you with us? Go ahead and try to, there you are.
Am I here?
You are.
Both Dorothy and I are 1967 graduates of Anley. Hello, Jim Murphy. And we were there when El Molino started. I'm also quite sure that some of the kids getting sent to El Molino at that point, whose parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters had gone to Annalee, were not too happy about being sent off to another school. Demographics and finances, things change. The grammar school I went to in San Francisco closed about 35 years ago, but the next door grammar school was not required to change its name, its identity, and its history so that a small group of people for a period of time would feel better. It is important for the folks from El Molino to be able to retain their history, and ways need to be found to do that. And I'm sure that their alumni group is capable of that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Zach Davis, followed by Anna D. With Janelle Roventini, Matt O'Donnell, and then Dominic Piazza. Zach, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Zach Davis, Annalee High School class of 2016. I just want to say that I'm in favor of keeping the name Annalee High School. I am 3 generations of Annalee alumni. My family has served as administrators in Annalee High School and has served where you all sit today as well. This is asinine that we are thinking of changing a historic name that has taken so much rooted in history in Sebastopol. Annalee has so much deepness of what our true culture is. It is how all our students and alumni have become great individuals and people. And changing the name is just not right to do to us. And the same goes with El Molino. With that change, it's not working out well for anybody. So I am in favor that you all should keep the name Annalee High School.
Thank you. Next speaker is Anna D.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. My name is Anna Duffy. I'm class of 79. Each of the board members have gotten letters from me. I'm the one that's writing. None of us know what the future holds. Things can change. My hope is that El Molino will be restored to a fully functioning and thriving school in the future. And as an Annalee alumni, I'm happy to reach across to El Molino and work with them to try and make that happen. And I believe many other Annalee alumni want the same thing for El Molino. We would like to see it returning to a functioning school. It is still on your books, so we don't know the future. We've looked at options maybe ahead of previously. That didn't work, but we can get together in a more creative fashion and take a look at see what we can do to bring that school back eventually 5 years or whatever into the future. I would hope that if we do go back to Annalee, that the seniors for this year, if they were El Molino students, maybe they could have El Molino on their graduation certificates. I don't know how that works, but I am in favor of keeping the Annalee name, keeping the history. The alumni are, we're also the students in our generation. So when you're doing it for the kids, we're doing it for us as well as a new student. So thank you for your time. I appreciate all the hard work and tough decisions you all are making.
Thank you. Next speaker is Janelle. Janelle, it looks like you have a microphone up. Can you turn it off before you talk? Because I'm getting
microphone
feedback.
Up.
Okay, there you go. There, okay. You're fine now.
Great. All right. Hi all. It's difficult to fathom how we come to this place. Our entire community has been divided by this unnecessary action. It's hard to believe that rebranding an esteemed high school was the only solution that could be thought of to unite our students. How could we not think of something? How could we not do better? I think we can all agree it's beyond sad that El Molino is currently closed. However, how on earth does that merit ripping apart the legacy of Annalee High School? Simply put, it doesn't. And I believe that all of you know in your hearts and in your heads that it doesn't. I think the only thing this ridiculous rebranding process has accomplished is dividing the entire West County community with a pretty hefty price tag at that. And now you have the opportunity to fix it, to make things right, and to focus everyone's energy and attention on our kids in our high school. Please do the right thing tonight. Your constituents, your taxpayers, your community, and our students want Annalee High School to remain Annalee High School. It's a great day to be a Tiger.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker is Matt O'Donnell. Matt, you have the floor.
Good evening. In a board meeting last spring, when the board...
my comments.
Sorry, give me 1 second to remove Janelle. Let me start your time over, Matt. And you have the floor.
In a board meeting last spring, when the board was discussing pausing rebranding,
Julie promised that she would listen to the El Molino students and said if they wanted a new school name to feel supported, the board would do the right thing at that time. I asked, what have you done for those students? Nothing. You have put the entire burden of consolidation on the students of the El Molino community. You cannot sit there and say you care about students, nor can you say you care about equity when you constantly ignore the minority voice in this district. I keep hearing parents from the Annalee community saying that this vote was to erase Annalee's history. Annalee ceased to exist when the board voted for consolidation. That ship has sailed. This is the time to continue forward with the West County name. I'm embarrassed that we are back at this place and we constantly have to deal with these same issues because the board doesn't listen to its constituents.
Thank you, Matt. Next speaker is Dominic, followed by Loretta Castleberry, and then I hope, Teresa, we got you back this time.
Hi, can
Dominic,
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Dominic Piazza, 2018 El Molino graduate and currently a senior at UC Davis. I had to take some time away from my graduate school applications to be here tonight, many of which are due in the coming days. I've been away at my university these last few months, so I haven't been as active, but I've been following the situation online, and it looks like the board's actions have only made it further deteriorate. To consider rebranding back to Annalee after all that was invested in rebranding to West County is utterly absurd. How dare you consolidate the high schools in the name of fiscal responsibility, and then turn around and waste huge amounts of funds on reversing a decision that the community largely supported. What a joke. I've studied economics, so I'm aware of the sunk cost fallacy, but it does not apply here. The students and staff like the West County Bridge name and they want to keep it. I've taken a look at your survey and I must say that it's faulty. Having also studied statistics, you should be aware of voluntary response bias. Your survey did not reach everyone, meaning that the results cannot be said to be representative of the entire student population. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dominic. Our next speaker is Loretta. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Actually, it's Chip.
Hey, Chip.
So, are we going? Good.
Yes.
My name's Chip Castleberry. In the 114 years Annalee has been in existence, I've been involved in Annalee for over half that time. I've worn many hats: water boy, student, teacher, athlete, coach, athlete director, parent, grandparent. I am sure that my wife and I have the all-time record for the Annalee prom. One of the there's many. One reason I've stayed out of this conversation is that I've really been concerned about not only Annalee but also El Molino. I was a former El Molino Little League president. Loretta taught there forever. The kids have spoken. The community has spoken. We can make a great school. It's time for us to remain Annalee. And thank you for all that you've done. I'm sorry for some of the hate that you've had to endure. If your house burns down, thank you very much.
Teresa, do we have you back here? Go ahead and unmute yourself. I'm hoping.
Okay, can you hear me?
She is. Yes.
Hi, my name is Teresa Liddell. I am a graduate of 1986. And I understand this is very hard for El Molino students as they're moved over to a new school. But it's not Annalee's fault that the students were moved. I've seen other schools be closed down and students have to move. And
whoa. You guys, please do. I'm going to stop you there real quick. Don't unmute yourself, people. I got to go mute everybody who just, sorry. Okay, there we are. Teresa, I apologize. You are back.
Okay, as I was saying, I've seen other schools that have closed and the students have to move and the schools did not change their names. It's something, unfortunately, that happens. I think that the rebranding process that started was premature and which has caused probably greater problems here. But the school, in my opinion, needs to stay Annalee. I think that's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Our next speaker is Brian Bertolli, followed by Daniel Diehl, Tom Bertolli, Leah Woody, Lisa Howard, Greg Jacobs, is our final speaker. Brian, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'm an Anley graduate of 1974, and my parents went to Anley in the 40s when it was all Anley, and my grandparents were in the 20s. So, but as most of you know, the Anley history goes back much further than that, and I think it would be a shame to put that aside. My reasons for wanting to retain the Anley name are threefold. Number one, the history of the school needs to be preserved in order to regain the trust and support of the community. And number two, I think changing the name does not fix anything. I should say changing the name away from Anley does not fix anything. And I understand the objections of the El Molino community of having to make that move, but changing the name is not going to fix that. You can't fix trauma by creating more trauma. And there's many other ways that you can accommodate the displaced students. And then lastly, if the school needs to be combined for financial reasons, then it makes no sense to spend a bundle of money rebranding.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Daniel.
Hello, thank you. My name's Daniel Diehl. I was a graduate in 1980. I'm calling in from Japan. I'm not aware that this vote has been given due process at the beginning, and that's why we're at this stage right now. But I just want to make one point, that El Molino was born out of Anley High School back in 1964 due to a crowding situation. And now that the student enrollment is insufficient to support both the schools, the students are returning to Anley High School. So there's really no need to change the name of the school, which is a part of both schools' history and heritage. The El Molino students are coming home to Anley. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tom Bertolli.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, hi. My name's Tom Bertolli, 1982 graduate of Anley High School. I follow in, as my cousin Brian spoke, as well as my cousin Carolyn earlier, as the historical value, I think, really needs to stay the same. I wear royal blue proudly. My dad, which one thing tonight that I haven't heard anyone mention, my dad was a teacher at Laguna. Although this is focused on Anley tonight, Laguna is still a third school, high school of this district, and it's being overseen, I think, as well. I played in the band all 4 years, and when we were in the Apple Blossom Parade, the people, the cheers, the pride, the love, the glory, and it's something that we need to keep the Anley name. And be proud of our school, as well as helping the other schools too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Leah Woody.
Hi, yes. Leah Woody, a devoted 24/7 college and career advisor. I'm here now at West County. I was previously at El Molino. I've had the honor to witness our students this fall unite to tears often. The board has voted to consolidate and utilize our tax funds for structural improvements, et cetera, et cetera. The name Anley representing outstanding academic achievements, I'd like to remind everyone that both schools are noted for that. Our students need a future, and it's not about a name. As Savannah, Conwell, Tim, Heidi, Mickelson mentioned, everyone that's on the ground have mentioned, this fall with the name change, West County for our seniors, I've walked through it with them, and it's been really, really hard for all of them. No one other than our seniors and their families understand.
Next speaker is Lisa Howard, followed by our last speaker, Greg Jacobs.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Lisa Howard. I'm a longtime Sebastopol resident, and I'm a 1978 Anley graduate. My mom, my brother, And several aunts, uncles, and cousins are also proud Anley graduates. You've probably heard the saying, it's time to fish or cut bait. Well, that time has arrived for the board to make a decision. This has gone on long enough. It's time to make a final decision tonight. The obvious decision is to vote that Anley remain Anley. That's what the majority of students want, as evidenced by the most recent survey. It's also what Anley alumni and the majority of community members have said they want during these board meetings and through numerous emails. I've written 3 myself. And as I did in my second email to the board, I will again ask each board member, please do the right thing and to give serious consideration to the legacy that each of you are leaving behind.
Thank you, Lisa, for your comments. Our last speaker is Greg Jacobs.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Dear board, thank you for your service. A lot of this goes without saying. I am a graduate of Anley of 1966. You are facing one of the most important decisions you will ever have to make. I'm asking you personally to preserve the heritage of this community that goes back to Jasper O'Farrell and Donna Diehl's relatives. I've written letters to you since August based on my review of your Zoom meetings, recordings, and the minutes. What I saw was a flawed process, steered by the superintendent. Improperly, I think, without involving the community and most importantly, you. We're now months down the line after the superintendent limited public participation in the renaming process originally, wasted thousands of dollars, and ignored the history of the school. Some of you responded to my letters. One of you said—
Thank you, Greg, for your comments. And that you have 2 additional hands up. Did you guys want to entertain them or no? Patrick, I got a thumbs up, 2 thumbs up.
Yeah,
3 thumbs up.
Yeah, it's 2 more. Go ahead.
Okay. I have SMCU Marketing and Tegan Hill, SMCU Marketing. If you could just state your name for the record. You have the floor.
Sorry, my name is Sue.
Uh-oh, you just got muted for some reason. There you are.
I would like to just say thank you for what you have done in leading this process. I am not impressed by how it's been handled. I think you guys have wasted a lot of time and money. And I would just like to say, please keep the Anley name and the heritage that goes with it. Thank you.
We missed the first half of your comment because you accidentally got muted. Will you please state your name again?
Susie Caballero Knowlton, Anley grad, 1992.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Tegan Hill.
Hey, this is Tegan Hill. I'm a current student here at West County. I attended Anley High School. I'm a junior, so I went there for 2 years before now. And I just wanted to give a little bit input on like what the student body is feeling like right now. When the consolidation happened, we were kind of promised that we would have this completely new school community, new name, new mascot and everything. And yeah, of course it was shocking in the beginning, but we overcame that. And I think together we have created a completely new school community. And I've met some of the greatest people I'll ever meet in my life. I think returning to Anley would be literally destroying all that progress we've made. And I think it would just cause a huge rift in between the student body. And I also agree with all the people speaking up for the El Molino minority here. They have been robbed of their name and their heritage. So I don't see how that's fair that we are saying that Anley is the most prevalent here when Anley alumni can still have their heritage. We are not saying Anley will never exist. We'll never speak of it again. It just won't be the name. Thank you.
Thank you, Tegan. And that concludes it.
Okay, we're going to bring it back to the board. And Tony, can you clarify? We'll get Angie 1 second. We'll take comments, but I think we do need to clarify because we have a motion and a second on the floor. But I think we actually need to have the current motion is not accurate based, on.
Yeah, the motion, what was approved by the board on March 16th was the board approved rebranding of the consolidated high school on the Annalee and Laguna campus. So if the board is deciding tonight to not rebrand, there would need to be a motion to rescind that approval that was made on March 16th to approve rebranding of the consolidated high school.
So
Point of order. Can Patrick just amend his motion to say he'd like to rescind the motion from March 16th and then repeat his motion?
That doesn't match the agenda item.
Yeah, the agenda item is comprehensive high school rebranding process. Why does that preclude him from rescinding the other motion if we're going to move forward?
The motion doesn't have to match what's in the actual board item, but the issue is we actually never took official action to have a bridge name.
You gave direction. You gave
direction to Tony. We never officially took action on it. So that means that the motion on the floor won't work. Is basically it either needs to be amended or a new motion made, or.
Can I amend my motion then?
You can amend your motion. Yes.
Okay. I move to rescind rebranding the motion from March 16th and reinstate the name Annalee High School for the comprehensive high school.
Then Jeannie, you would have to amend your second.
I can amend my second, no problem.
All right. Now, Angie, you had
point of order. Wouldn't that action have to be agendized?
Yes. This is an action item.
I guess I'm just a little confused I was just reviewing recently Robert's rule of order. So I'm a little confused on how, because we voted unanimously in March to rebrand. So we're saying the new motion on the floor is, can you repeat that to me, please?
To rescind the vote from March 16th of rebranding and to reinstate Annalee High School as the name of the comprehensive high school.
Yeah, I'm just confused. I didn't think you could rescind prior vote without publicly noticing or rescinding of the prior vote. Can we get legal advice on this?
You're muted, Tony.
It would take me some time to do that.
I mean, I would just say that, since there seems to be board energy towards that, even though the staff and administration and students want to leave it, that can we make a motion for Tony to research that?
I mean, I just never, for Robert's rules, I mean, the item has to be an action. It doesn't, the action that's taken doesn't have to necessarily exactly word for word match what is in the title of the agenda item, because based on
I think it's more of rescinding a previous vote. That Patrick wasn't even here for.
That doesn't matter. He's here now, so he counts now.
Yeah, I don't think that piece, but can you reach out to legal, Tony?
She's on the phone with them right now.
She's not answering. Jenny, do you want to try yours?
Yeah. I'm going offline for a second.
Kelly, can I suggest we take a 10-minute recess, please, and then come back when we have answers?
Yeah, because I might be able to reach out to someone who's an expert on Robert's Rules of Order too as well. So let's, try to get an answer to this question. All right, we'll be back at 7:35.
Justin, did you just join us?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead. Go ahead and speak one more time.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
I just have to rename you.
No problem.
Justin, remind me of your last name again.
Rich, R-I-C-H.
Thank you.
Couldn't hear you, Kelly.
I was, sorry, Denny had the door open. I was not talking to you. I was talking to him.
That's okay. I saw your mouth moving. I just wondered. Thanks. No problem.
Okay. All right, we're going to come back. So I think Tony has gotten clarification from legal, and the amended motion can stand. So the amended motion to rescind the March action, and then Jeannie's second. Go ahead, Angie.
I just had a quick question. Just typically, I'm not sure who brought it up. Somebody brought up the point that I'm not sure if it was Gillian or that we always have staff report out before a motion. So this whole thing just kind of feels like really premature and premeditated to me.
We actually don't. We always take the motion at the beginning of the item.
I will say that
I've just seen it both ways.
I will say that there have been times that we have not done that, but it really is our prerogative on how that's done. And but normally that is what we agreed to originally.
And I will say I make mistakes at times and do forget at times, and everyone will be like, Kelly, you remember you have to do the motion first before we can go into the board report. So I just know that because I often make a mistake and do forget. And I know for this item specifically that, yeah, that's. Any other questions on that?
So what's the motion on the floor?
Karen could restate it.
You want to state it, Karen?
Okay, this is what I have. I've got Trustee Nagel move to amend the motion to rescind rebranding from the March 16th, 2021 meeting and reinstating Alley High School name for the comprehensive high school. Did I get that?
That's correct. Kelly, we now need to take final board comments. Yeah.
So any comments from the board on this item? Go ahead, Angie.
I'll start off, I guess. I was curious, Tony, what the NCAA timeline is to change it back.
We would need to wait to the end of the school year and change it back for next school year.
And how long does it take to do that?
It doesn't take that long.
Okay.
If I started it at the beginning. If I started it in June, it would be done by August.
Kelly, are we just doing questions or comments too?
Both. This can be anything, all of the above.
So I got a few points here. I don't understand how the name determines whether the school is good or not. I heard a lot of comments about, you know, if it's only a good school if it's this certain name. That is crazy to me. I think they're creating a great school regardless, and we have an amazing staff. To my knowledge, it was never any of the board's intention to erase history of either campus ever. So I don't really understand. There just seems to be a lot of like misinformation or misinterpretation out there. The majority of the letters I got as a board member are I, mine. And it just makes me realize how unhealthy or self-centered a lot of these intentions are. The staff has pleaded with us to keep it. We've heard from the staff and students all the hard work and how great it has been coming together. I forget what the last student's name was. I wrote her name down. I think there are great ways to reflect without erasing history. And I don't know, I think we've heard from a lot of people that no longer live here. And I get, you know, the growing pains of moving forward. I'm an Annalee alum. I don't understand, like my identity is not tied to that. So I guess I just don't really understand that. I'm here to serve the kids and do what's best for them, especially through a tough time and transition like this. And I don't know how people can't rally behind that when we have heard such a strong presence. The staff survey, the people that are in the trenches making this all happen have pleaded with us, and to ignore that, I just feel like we're sending a strong statement that we don't really care or want to listen to them. And it's tragic to me. This isn't easy for any of us. I think the whole thing has been awful and terrible. And, you know, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or what we should have done, or it's too late. We have an opportunity to really keep the good momentum going. I think it was Max Broome that said that. Why we would jeopardize that or risk that it blows my mind. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to make decisions we can live with, and Godspeed, y'all.
Go ahead, Jolie.
I don't feel like I've ignored anybody. I have spent so much time reading everybody's emails and comments. I have to look at the past, present, and future when I vote. It's been extremely difficult for me. And I just want to say I so appreciate the teachers and the entire high school staff that has supported the students during this very difficult consolidation and every aspect of it. But please don't think for a minute that I have ever taken my vote lightly. I don't think any of us have. And we've tried to consider everybody's opinion and everything we possibly can. And, that's one of the reasons I think it's taken so long, is because this was done quickly and we didn't get the input that some of us felt like we needed. I was one that really pushed for the student survey because I really wanted to hear what they had to say. And I think we did. And I understand that a lot of people are going to be disappointed either way we go. And I am deeply, deeply sorry and saddened by that. But I hope eventually we can all come together for the sake of our students and our school and our community and make this a great school. And I do understand, I just want to say one more thing. I do understand that a name carries weight. I think it's great that both schools had wonderful reputation. I'm so sorry that El Molino isn't here right now, but Anna Lee does have a great reputation and it is known as a great school. And I think that's something that should be celebrated. And I don't think that's a bad thing or something that should be ignored.
Patrick, you had your hand up.
I did. I wanted to kind of piggyback on what Julie just said. I certainly have spent a lot of time talking to a lot of different people about their views on rebranding, pros, cons, against it. I've received hundreds of emails, as the other trustees have. I've talked to people in the grocery store. I've talked to people on the golf course. I've talked to people with opposing views. I've talked to people that I agreed with. I've heard everyone's opinions. It just doesn't mean I agree with everything. And that at some point, we're really at the fork in the road. We're either going to go left or right. One group of people is going to be happy. One group of people is going to be unhappy. But we need to make the decision. We need to move forward and we need to come together. No matter what happens, we're going to vote. It's going to pass or it's not. And we're going to move forward and we're going to have to come together and work together to build and continue to support what we need to do. We have a lot of other things to do. So, we're going to vote. I've listened, but I hear a lot of people say in their emails and in their public comments, you're not listening to your community. But yet every single person that's commenting is a part of our community. So we are listening, but we that doesn't mean that we agree. We were told last meeting that we needed to survey the kids. We surveyed the kids. The kids offered their opinions and we have the results. Some people don't like the result, but that's what the kids voted. And that doesn't mean that that's what we're going to do, but we've asked the kids. The community members have shared their opinions in lots of different ways. The staff has given their opinion in lots of different ways. We've heard you, and it's time to vote.
Go ahead, Jeannie.
Thank you, Kelly. I just wanted to point out that, yes, in fact, the students were surveyed, and I just want to point out that it was over 50% of the students who voted to retain the Anley name. So not all the students are in favor of West County. I also want to tell you that the teachers and the staff also did their own survey. They were not all 100% in favor of West County High School. So saying that the teachers and the students have spoken, they have. We are listening like Patrick said, I really like that, Patrick, that we are listening. We heard you. We may not agree, but that's not the point. The point is that we are the leaders who've been elected to take the vote on this, and that we will do. I want to say also that I've heard from a couple of teachers who were absolutely deathly afraid of coming on here tonight and speaking in public because they didn't agree with the majority of some of the other teachers that did speak, and they didn't want to get any of that backlash that might come from them speaking up about retaining the Anley name. So I just want folks to know that we've heard from thousands of people since this started. And I'm not kidding you, thousands. And I really appreciate those that were able to connect tonight and share their thoughts and views. It is important, and we do care what everyone has to say. We have a choice, and we are going to vote on what it is that we want to do.
And before I make my comments, Dylan, do you have any comments to add?
Yeah. So I just wanted to remind everyone in the board that part of merging two schools is requires unifying the student body, and I haven't seen that coming from this board at all. Every single thing that has been made so far to unify the school as a whole has been coming from the students themselves, especially students who belong to clubs and the leadership class. Personally, I know Journalism Club, AAPI Club, La Raza Club, La Raza Unida, they've been trying so hard to unify the student body that it's not fair to not take into consideration their efforts when you make a decision tonight. Also, the leadership class has been working really hard since the beginning of the school year, putting hours, extra hours, after school, before school, even before school started during the summer. So yeah, that's really important to consider if you are thinking of voting to rebrand back to Annalee. Because I don't think West County the name West County does any damage to anyone. It's not erasing any identity whatsoever. I think it's actually embracing both Annalee's and Elmo's identities because it represents West County as a whole. Changing the name back to Annalee would be selfish from part of the Annalee community, and it'd be eclipsing the Elmo's heritage and culture. So yeah, just think about it well.
Thank you, Dylan. Angie?
I'm just going to go back to the financial decision aspect of it real quick, because that seemed to be a sticking point for a lot of people. It was brought up a lot in public comment too, is it's going to cost significantly more to go back. We've already spent as a board over $100,000 in getting this off the ground. So to go back and spend even more, I wonder how we feel as a board that we're doing a good job, being that we have a financial crisis. The second point is just the tone of what we're doing here. We had voted unanimously to rebrand so that this wasn't deemed or felt or looked as like a hostile takeover. So at this point, all the money that's been spent and we're going back and forth, I feel like we look ridiculous, because if we were just going to keep it as this and it was going to be this hostile takeover, it should have just been that from the beginning. Like, I just feel like we run in circles, and I'm pretty frustrated and embarrassed.
Go ahead, Jeannie.
I just want to remind everybody that the vote that we took on rebranding was a temporary placeholder. It was a bridge name. In my mind, it was never meant to be the permanent name. We never said that. it was meant to be temporary until we could get done with the process that we are now finally finishing, albeit a bit broken. But it was not that I'm confused as to how it went from being a temporary bridge name to being permanent. And so, no, Angie, we didn't vote unanimously to make it the name of the high school. It was a temporary bridge name.
Can I just answer that real quick? I was looking back at Tony's notes, and when we voted unanimously, it was to allow the kids in the Unity Committee to come together and get this off the ground. And we had voted unanimously to let that process happen, not for us to step in and revert back and kind of stomp on the whole process.
Well, I have a couple comments. I mean, I think just talking about the process and where we are with, the motion that's on the floor tonight, I feel just really disappointed with the process. I think, when we first started talking about consolidation, I feel like I was one of the first board members to mention kind of this idea around rebranding. And Dylan, to your points last time around, the renaming of buildings as Annalee and El Molino. I mean, I think that was one of the initial early ideas that we kind of sort of floated around in this like visionary process of like, oh, we could have an Annalee campus and an El Molino campus. And I think, unfortunately, where we are at today, because of the process that hasn't been done with the Unity Committee. I mean, I feel like we gave this direction at a board meeting to have a bridge name, and then asked for a number of follow-up items, which did not come back to the board. We weren't necessarily engaged in some of the Unity conversations and or what's happening on campus. And I think what is being shown is through this data is that unfortunately it's more divisive right now than it was at the beginning of this process. And it's really unfortunate because I think for me at the beginning of this, I was really hopeful that, we could do a really great community engagement process, because when I think of the community, it's our school community first and foremost. We have our students, we have our staff, and it's the broader community. I mean, we need to engage our broader community because a school is a hub, a school is a part of a community. And I mean, that's the whole community school model, that it's really connected. And unfortunately, this has divided us more. I mean, what I'm seeing from the data is everything is still divided. I mean, the West County name has not brought together our community. And from where I sit, I just feel like I can't make a decision to move to something that's permanent, that the current data is showing that it's not necessarily doing what was intended through the bridge name. And I mean, to the comments, like I've gotten comments around the colors, like, are we choosing that red and blue are going to be our permanent colors? That feels really not inclusive to some students based on recent political challenges that have happened at the national level. And, that is something that we should be considering and thinking about. And so I just feel like at this point, I'm just really saddened that we couldn't get to a point of a process where we were better engaging all constituents to really bring the community together in a way that could have supported all voices. And I still would like to know, moving forward, what is the next steps for Unity? I mean, a name is one piece, but the Unity is what's happening all behind that name. And, for the kids in the survey who feel different directions, like what's being done to support the student culture and their social emotional health and their engagement in school. But I think for me right now, I can't in the right space vote for something that the data is not showing me that is actually doing what its intended purpose was meant to do. And I feel all of the student survey, and I would also like to acknowledge just some of the comments that for the El Molino being a choice in the survey, I did ask for that and didn't get support for that piece. A public opinion and poll, I asked for that as well so that we could get better data from the broader community. And so I think there's just more that we could have done to get better input if we would have earlier on had a better community engagement strategy. And unfortunately, with the lack of that strategy, we ended up dividing the community even more. And that's just a disappointment around the process that has been put forth. And I acknowledge I played a role in that piece. You know, I'm a part of this leadership team. So I take a responsibility for the piece that I played in the inability to put forth a good process to get us to an end result that could have felt better for everyone.
Can we have Patrick restate his motion and then can I call the question?
Can you restate the motion, Patrick?
Sure. To rescind the previous motion of rebranding, I believe the date was March of 2021, and reinstate Anley High School as the name of the comprehensive high school.
And the question has been called. So we will go forward with a roll call vote. Patrick?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
Angie?
No.
Kelly? Aye.
You need to ask Dylan.
Oh, Dylan.
No.
Kelly, would you state to the public what the final vote was so that it's on record?
So it's so Jeannie Fernandez, aye. Patrick Nagel, aye. Julie Ayala, aye. Kelly Noe, aye. Angie Lewis, no. Dylan Pena Perez, no.
Thank you.
So now we will move on to the next item.
Kelly, can I ask a request? We have both of the members for the public hearing present. Is it possible to move the public hearing to the next item and then I'll do the educator effectiveness grant last so that they can do that?
Does that work for the board?
So. Do we need to make a motion to do that?
I think we need to make a motion to adjust the agenda. So can someone make that as a motion?
I move that we adjust the agenda to allow the CVRA to follow next.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Julie. And now we have to do roll call. Patrick.
Aye.
Jeannie.
Aye.
Angie.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
Kelly, aye. Dylan?
Aye.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, so this item is the CVRA. It's the public hearing regarding the composition of potential trustee voting areas associated with the district's transition to a bi-trustee area election. We've had 3 public hearings. This is the 4th public hearing, the 2nd after the maps have been developed. And I think there's a new map. I'm going to let both Jonathan Salt and Justin take over from here.
Thank you, Superintendent Diehl. Good evening, members of the board and community. I'm Jonathan Salt, joined by the demographer Justin Rich. And as Superintendent Diehl mentioned, this is the 4th overall public hearing, 2nd map public hearing. There'll be one additional.
Uh-oh, we lost you, Jonathan.
There he is. He's back.
Somehow we lost him.
I have his presentation. I don't know what happened. Let's see here. I'm going to stop his video and try to get him just to talk. Jonathan, are you still with us? Oh, he's been kicked. I think he's coming back now. Okay, we lost Jonathan.
I can pinch hit on his presentation if that's helpful.
Great. I'll go ahead and share my screen. And you're ready to go. Oh, right. Jonathan's back with us now.
Hi, sorry about that. I'm going to turn my screen off here. Can you also hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, Jenny, I'll yell out next slide. Why don't we start with next slide? Thanks. So again, I know that we've gone through a lot of these slides multiple times before, but just in case there's somebody new listening in or learning about this for the first time, you want to know, what the heck is going on. This is happening because of the California Voting Rights Act, the CVRA, and that law says that if you have an at-large election system, which means that regardless of where any candidate lives, every person in the district votes in every board election and at large, right? All votes total counted. If that system impairs the ability of members of a protected class from influencing the outcome of an election or electing a candidate of choice, that system might violate the CVRA. Next slide. Another reason why this is popping up here and around the state is that should one challenge a school district or a city's at-large election method and prevail, they'd be entitled to significant attorney's fees and expert fees. But if a school district or a city were to successfully defend at-large elections, which has not happened to date, they'd not be afforded that same right. Next slide. And so the only safe harbor from a CVRA claim is to transition to a by-trustee area election system where the district is divided into roughly equal population areas, and a board member will be elected from each area only by the voters who reside in that same area. Importantly, regardless of where all the current board members live, everybody serves out their full term, but ultimately over time, there will be one trustee per area. Next slide. So the current stage we're at, I'm going to hand off to Justin, is the draft map stage. We had a pre-map stage where we solicited feedback before maps were drawn. Now we're in the map stage, kind of in the middle of it, the second of 3 public hearings on that. Justin, why don't you talk about the criteria for making the maps?
Sure. First and foremost, making sure that when we draw maps, we need to make sure that each of the trustee areas are roughly equal in population. And so that won't be perfect, but we have a threshold, which we've discussed before, that is the allowable amount of deviation up to 10% between the smallest and the largest of the trustee areas. Next slide. So in addition to being as equal as possible, we also need to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, which, similar to the California Voting Rights Act, means that we're not impairing the ability of a protected class to elect the candidate of their choice. There's small, subtle differences there, but we keep an eye on that to make sure that if there's certain things that we can do as we're drawing the maps, that we keep those protected classes in mind. Voting districts also need to be geographically contiguous, which means that there's no islands or pieces that are not connected. We should take into consideration local communities of interest. The state of California defines those as groups that have shared social and economic characteristics, geographical compactness, and trying to keep them not having large or oddly shaped districts. I will note that can be challenging when you have certain topography and varying population densities and all that. So this is really relative to the way that we look at that. but to the extent we can, we should try to keep them compact. And then finally, we shouldn't favor or discriminate against an incumbent, a political candidate, or political party. Next slide. On this slide, we've included a map and a table. You'll note that we're using two different data sets throughout each of the maps, and I just want to take a moment to describe those. First, we have the total census population, which means every single person counted. This is in line with the one person, one vote constitutional doctrine. And then on this slide, we've included the citizen voting age population. This is the best estimate of the eligible voters based on their racial or ethnic category. And so we've included the largest protected class, which is the Hispanic Latino voters. You will see on this slide, we've included a map, which is a graduated color map. And the blocks that you see are the census blocks that we're using to draw these maps. The darker the color, the more concentrated the Hispanic Latino population is, and the lighter the color, the less concentration there is. Next slide. We wanted to provide some information that just shows, first of all, when we're looking at the total population of the district, and we know that we need to have 5 trustee areas, that gives us down in the very bottom corner, it shows that 9,492 is the ideal size that we're shooting for. Again, we have a little bit of wiggle room there because we're able to have a variance of 10%. But as we were going through the maps and as we've focused on the various feeder districts into West Sonoma County Union High, we calculated the population for each of those districts. We think this is a helpful reference tool, and it just illustrates the fact that, for instance, we can't keep certain districts, certain elementary districts, that is, in one trustee area, or it shows that we have to combine multiple districts together in order to be able to get to that ideal population of roughly 9,500. So we've listed this here, and we think this will be helpful just to be able to see kind of the scale of the population density for each of those elementary feeder districts. Next slide. So I want to note a few things. You've seen 3 of these maps before. We are also including a 4th map based on the feedback that we heard at our last meeting. I want to note that on all of these maps, we've made some changes. We've changed the colors just to provide more contrast. We had heard that it was difficult to be able to tell the difference between certain trustee areas when they were right next to each other and there wasn't enough contrast. So we've done that. We've added the trustee area numbers so that that's easier to identify. So that you'll see in the center of each one of those colors, there is a TA and then a number that follows it. That's the trustee area for that particular color. We've also added the school locations, the elementary, middle, and high schools all throughout the area that the district serves. And then there was also an address for Patrick that we changed as well. So we've corrected some of those things, and hopefully they're a little bit easier to be able to see and to understand. So in scenario 1, just to review, trustee area 1 includes Fort Ross, Montgomery, Guerneville, Monterey, and portions of Forestville and Harmony. Trustee area 2 includes most of Harmony, the western part of Twin Hills, and southwest Sebastopol. Trustee area 3 includes East Twin Hills, Gravenstein, and southeast Sebastopol. Trustee area 4 includes most of Forestville, West Oak Grove, and the northwestern portion of Sebastopol. Trustee area 5 includes the eastern portion of Oak Grove and the northeastern portion of Sebastopol. I will note a couple of things. You'll see down in the table at the very bottom, it shows the variance. That's the difference, again, between the largest and the smallest district. We're well within the 10% threshold that we're targeting at 3.7%. So this is one of the lower variance scenarios that we have, and we'll go and look at each one of those as we go through the maps. We've also included the election sequencing just to be able to show what the the potential sequence for each one of the areas when those election cycles may come up. So there's a box on the right-hand side that shows that. Next slide.
Just to quickly chime in on that, Justin, because there is a board member who was appointed relatively recently, and that board member or any other candidate potentially in 2022 has to run to serve out the remainder of the original 4-year term, it's possible that because that seat was at large, that
we lost him again.
I think what Jonathan was going to say is that there would be a short 2-year.
Regardless, whoever wins the, in 2022 for the remainder of that 2-year term can live anywhere.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next slide. So we have a zoomed in version of this slide. I will note also that we have an interactive map that is on the district's website that you should be able to zoom in and see virtually every street that's within the district. I do know that some of the minor streets are not labeled there, but most of the streets will be labeled and will give you a better sense of not only the streets, but then you can also see the structures and the topography based on there's different layers that you can switch on and off. So hopefully that's a helpful tool for you all to get a little bit more detail about each one of these scenarios. Next slide. So I had mentioned the Federal Voting Rights Act and the citizen voting age population data. Again, that's a measure of voting strength for certain minority groups. I will note that in Trustee Area 4, there is the largest concentration of a protected class, the Hispanic Latino voters, at 11.6%. You will see that for 3 of the first 3 scenarios, I believe, are all at 11.6%, and the 4th scenario is about 11.4%. So there's not much difference from scenario to scenario, just based on where that population is concentrated. Next slide. So in scenario 2, Trustee Area 1 is virtually the same as scenario 1. So there was really no change there. Trustee Area 2, there's a little less of Sebastopol and a little bit more of Twin Hills. Trustee Area 3, there is a smaller portion of Twin Hills, and it includes all of Gravenstein. And it includes East Sebastopol and East Oak Grove as well. In Trustee Area 4, there is less of Sebastopol, more of Oak Grove, and in Trustee Area 5, this is the Central Sebastopol portion with a small portion of Twin Hills. The variance, as you'll see, is 3.4%. The largest trustee area is Trustee Area 4, and the smallest, this is the same as scenario 1, is Trustee Area 1. Next slide. Again, we've included the zoomed in portion as well. Each of the maps that are posted on the district's website have a map that shows the full extent of the district. It also includes this zoomed in portion where it focuses more on the areas that are mostly populated or more highly densely populated. And then it also has all of the demographic breakdown and shows you all the numbers for each one of the trustee areas. Next slide. So again, I will point to Trustee Area 4, where we have the largest concentration of a protected class. And that's in Trustee Area 4 with the Hispanic Latino voters at 11.6%. Next slide. Scenario 3 takes a little bit different in the northwestern portion of the district, where Trustee Area 1 does not include any portion of Harmony and takes a little bit more of the Forestville area. Trustee Area 2 takes all of Harmony and almost all of Twin Hills and a very small piece of Sebastopol as well. Trustee Area 3 similarly includes all of Gravenstein. This is similar to what you saw in Scenario 2. the eastern portions of Sebastopol and also Oak Grove as well. Trustee Area 4, again, takes the large portion of Forestville, the western portion of Oak Grove, and really just the northeast corner, the northwest corner of Sebastopol. Next slide. Again, the zoomed in map shows the detail more in that Sebastopol, Oak Grove, Gravenstein area, and shows you how those follow mostly major roads, and just gives you a better sense of where those lines fall. Next slide. Again, in Trust Area 4, I'll point to the fact that this is the largest concentration of a protected class. Again, in Trust Area 4 for the Hispanic Latino voters, that's no change from what we saw in scenarios 1 and scenarios 2. Next slide. So in scenario 4, what we tried to do is there was a comment about, and I think, Jeannie, that this was one that you had pointed out, trying to take a more east to west approach with the scenarios. And so we've taken Trust Area 1, and by grabbing a bit more of the area in Forestville, we have Fort Ross, Montgomery, Guerneville, and then really that northwestern portion of Forestville. That's in Trust Area 1. Trust Area 2 includes Monterey, Harmony, and a portion of Twin Hills, also a small portion of Sebastopol as well. Trust Area 3, it has a portion of Twin Hills, I would say a majority of Twin Hills, still Gravenstein, and then a small portion of Sebastopol down in the southeastern portion. Trust Area 5, I will note that while it stretches from the eastern portion of Sebastopol and covers that central portion, right in the central portion of Trust Area 5, it really follows what we saw as the city of Sebastopol boundaries. We thought that was knowing that we had to split that up. That seemed like a logical dividing line, at least the incorporated portion of Sebastopol. And then Trust Area 4 is that portion of Forestville, the entirety of Oak Grove, and then just has small pieces of Sebastopol. So this was a little different look than what we had done in other scenarios. It might split up some districts a little bit more, but just in a little different manner, I suppose. Next slide. Oh, and I'll point out that the variance for this particular scenario is 8.6%. As you'll see, that's partly because of the fact that Trust Area 1 has grown. Trust Area 5 has grown and Trust Area 3 has shrunk. And so that's the largest is Trust Area 5 and the smallest is Trust Area 3. Next slide. Again, this I think highlights the way that Trust Area 5, that purple area, follows the city of Sebastopol incorporated boundaries, especially on the western portion of the city of Sebastopol. And that's why we drew it along that way and then used really the southern boundary of the Sebastopol school district as the boundary there. Next slide. Again, looking at the citizen voting age population, Trust Area 4 has the largest concentration of a protected class at 11.4% of the Hispanic Latino voters, and just a small difference compared with the other 3 scenarios. Next slide.
And so as a reminder, these maps do not change the district's overall boundaries or school attendance boundaries. This only changes how board members are elected, which residents can run for board in which years, and which residents are voting in each election. It doesn't change how the board is governed. Each board member, regardless of trustee area, owes a duty to the entire district. Next slide. And just sort of recapping, next slide, Jenny. Thanks. We're kind of at the end of the line here. 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to have another public hearing just like this. And then the next item on the agenda will be a resolution, where as part of that resolution, formally transitioning to the new system, the board will vote on one of the available map options to serve as the district's map, and then submit that map to the county for approval. Next slide. There have been updates throughout. This is actually an old screenshot, but on the district's website, the maps are posted. There's also now all 4 options are posted on the website as well. Next slide. And at that link, there is an interactive map that Justin mentioned. Next slide. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. You can have it look kind of like this, like Google Maps, or you can have it look, like a satellite. But you can zoom in and see streets and see really where these lines are. And I just want to demonstrate that if you play with it, the district's got really good instructions on the website of how to go about changing and looking at that. So if you want to really kind of dive in, because it's such a large area, click on the interactive map tool. Click on the map you'd like to look at and zoom in. You can really see where all of these streets are. Next slide. So with that, Justin and I will stand by for field any public comment from the community, from the board, and answer any questions. Thanks.
All right, we will go ahead and open up the public hearing for comment from the public on items related to the maps. And we will, the same as the last item, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please make sure you raise your hand so that we know that you want to speak and address the board. And I will give it a few moments so people can raise their hand. And again, we appreciate if you are thinking at all that you potentially may want to make a comment on this item, please raise your hand and we will take you to speak. Looks like people are still putting up their hands, so give it a second.
We're holding pretty steady at 7.
All right, so we have 7, and it looks like Jason Fernandez is our last speaker. How much time do we want to give for the speakers for this item? Want to go?
And Dylan just sent us a note saying he had to go.
Okay, 2 minutes. Is 2 minutes good for this? Your speakers? Okay, so we'll give 2 minutes and
I'm just getting the right clock set up. Hold on. And so it's 2 minutes for everyone. All right. First speaker, Gillian Hayes. Second speaker, Leah Woody, followed by David Carey, Tillipy, David Stetcher, Steve Griffiths, and Jason Fernandez. I'm just going to bring you guys all in the room. Remember not to unmute yourself until I ask you to do so. And Gillian, you have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I'll try not to take the full 2 minutes. I know we've all been here already a while. I think number 4, scenario 4, does respond to some of the public comment and some of the board comment. I think it's close. I think it's still a bit off because if you're looking at communities, I do think the boundary between the blue and the green should be adjusted. But I think it gets close to capturing, the protected communities. I work for the city of Vallejo. I'm doing this right now in my city as well. So I understand this process very well. I think what you got to do to get the South Sebastopol community, though, is reduce the blue area up to Bodega Ave, around Pleasant Hill. That whole area really is still kind of Sebastopol, rural area. It's not really towards the Camp Meeker Occidental type people. So I think really if you increase the green area up to Bodega, Pleasant Hill area, and decrease the blue area, just that little bit there will help that separation between those differences in community identities. Otherwise, there's a few small tweaks, but relatively, 4 has addressed, I mean, of course, I'm a Forestvillean, so I might make a few tweaks, but nothing that largely seems flawed to me here. I think the Guerneville and beyond to the coast is totally accurate representation. The South Coast and Occidental Camp Meeker area is another great blue section in that 4 scenario. So I would just make that slight adjustment to include the South Sebastopol rural area and bring it out of the blue and put it into the green so that those communities have, a little bit better delineation between those. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian. Leah Woody, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Perfect. Thank you, Gillian. I have a question. I met Justin, and thank you all for your work. I have a question in terms of the population. I know the data that you're looking at is actually from the census. And I know we all know that our district and West County has been flooded with new families, right? And so I really want to make sure that this considers all the new families that have moved into our district in terms of voting rights and population of voters, because it's changed a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is David Carey.
Thank you. My name is David Carey, and thank you, board members, as always, for your service. However, you really should not limit the already meager public comment on this important topic to just 2 minutes. So here are 5 more points rather quickly. Number 1, you should not let stand your lawyer's incorrect statement at the last hearing that state law prevents you from mitigating your inherent personal conflicts of interest in this matter. State law does create the conflict of interest, and it does not provide some of the tools that it should to mitigate those conflicts. However, it does allow many other measures, including a commitment on your part for full transparency, full public disclosure of the flows of information both ways between and on behalf of you and your demographer. You should clearly avoid any questionable appearance that you might, for example, be emulating tobacco companies by funneling communications through lawyers to keep those communications hidden from voters. Number 2, for many reasons, in many ways, the city of Sebastopol is a unique community of interest and should not be split among multiple trustee areas. Scenario 4 comes closest to this. Build on that scenario in terms of that area of the map. To reach a count for a full trustee area for Sebastopol, add in higher density areas rather than reaching out further from the city limits, especially in the Northwest. Number 3, do a better job of keeping feeder districts together. Sebastopol Union is split among 4 trustee areas in all 4 scenarios. Reduce that down to 2 or at most 3. Number 4, explicitly list which incumbent by name would be in which trustee area. The usage of stars doesn't do that. It's ambiguous when the stars are on the border, and it's a bad practice. Number 5, roads and streets, especially more residential streets, tend to connect people and create communities. Avoid using roads and streets to create new political boundaries for the trustee areas. And finally, thank you very much for the interactive maps. They're very helpful in helping understand what's happening here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tillapi. Sorry if I say that wrong.
That's all right. It's Chris. My phone died, so I had to call in from a different computer. Which that's the name on it. So my apologies. I wanted to say that I think that option number 4 is actually the best out of all of them. Essentially, I think it is going to allow people from different communities to give their own input and have people represent where they actually feel on it. One thing that David mentioned, however, is putting on there exactly which current incumbent would be representing which district instead of a star. That would really be appreciated because, I don't want people, I wanted to say, well, where does this person live? Do a whole Google thing. I want to know, okay, well, our current person is, would be in this district, in this scenario, in that district, in that scenario. That'd give me an idea exactly, okay, is this person, someone I would want to, hey, let's go ahead and, help them retain their position or not in the new format when it comes out. So Besides that, I think you guys are doing a great job on this, and I really appreciate all the hard work you've all been putting into it. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is David Stetcher. You have the floor.
Did that work?
Yep.
Okay. Hi. Real briefly, what would be the last date that I could submit a specific suggestion to you in order for you to have time to consider it and include a possible modification? The other two things would be your map shows, your base map shows how important Gravenstein Highway is, and that the new district voting will change the makeup of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next speaker is Steve Griffith. You have the floor.
Hello, board. Good evening. I would like to add my comments in approval of many of the previous speakers that of all the scenarios, number 4 seems to be closest to what I would view as the important goal, a very important goal of getting closest as possible to the boundaries of the feeder districts. So along those lines, I would recommend that if you can make some tweaks and slight changes to map number 4, even if it means pushing the population variance closer to 10%, you are allowed that 10%. And I think that it would be a very worthwhile thing to do to make the boundaries of the voting areas as close as possible to the boundaries of the feeder districts. I also go both ways about main roads being a dividing line, because typically those are very unified areas on both sides of the street. So if it comes to it for feeder districts, please do run the lines behind and between houses so that main streets might be kept together. And also, I have a question. I assume that these districts, once voted on and the maps are adopted, they will last for 10 years until the next census, like the county districting that's going on now. Am I correct in that? Thank you for your answer and your consideration.
Our last speaker is Jason Fernandez. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Good evening, board. I do like scenario 1 in regards to the border outlines, but as well, I do see a more unified layout in scenario 4, just depending on how the powers of your guys' selections are laid out. With that scenario 4 boundaries, definitely give what I consider a more unified look to our county, but as well, scenario 1 really gives a more accurate view of what our community is. So I'd like to see a kind of a combination between 1 and 4, where there's a little bit less of the West County section dove in, or split up across in section 1. The layout for that, I guess it would be deep West County, and stretched it back a little bit more to the scenario 4, and just move that section of the deep West Sonoma County so there's a little bit closer variation between the two. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes our public comments.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. Do we have any comments or questions from the board?
One member of the community asked the last day that they could provide input. Do we know what? I mean, obviously, I think we're bringing this back one more time. But what is the last day that people can provide any type of input that can be taken into consideration?
Hi, Trustee Nagel. The last possible day for any new map to be created is 7 days prior to the adoption meeting. So December 7th would be the last possible date that there could be any new maps posted on the website that could be considered on December 14th. That said, it may take more than a couple hours to make changes. So the sooner the better if there are any additional comments, so that Justin and his team have time to see if those work and if the population numbers can work, and see if, assuming there's board direction, to see if some of these ideas are, appealable to the community. I'd say in the next couple of days, because the maps would have to be posted by December 7th.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next couple of days. Thank you.
Jonathan, I think it's December 8th, right? If we're looking at the December 15th meeting, do I have my dates right?
You do. I have my dates wrong. It's the 8th.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jeannie.
So first of all, I want to say thank you to Justin for taking some of my suggestions and putting them in here. It makes a huge difference, I think, for us to understand. I do like the idea of instead of just putting a star, where you have the white box, you could put the trustee last name. I think that I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that. So yeah, thank you for those updates. And again, thank you for hearing me with regards to scenario number 4. I do also see that if there's a way to do a little bit more of adjustment so that some of that trustee area 2 can be moved up into trustee area 1, of course, depending on population, because that's who those people are. I mean, that's their community of interest. So that makes sense to me. And thank you also for giving us something different than 2 and 3, where trustee area 3 did not have communities of interest taken into consideration, in my opinion, at all. So that really was helpful. I'm looking at my notes here. Sorry.
Can I make a clarification?
Say what?
Can I make a clarification?
Sure.
So currently in trustee area 1, in scenario 4, we have it following the boundaries of Fort Ross, Montgomery, and Guerneville. Are you saying that we would take trustee area 2 and move it up across those boundaries?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm just a little tweaking there, so it's more of a straight line across there. I mean, I don't know, but bring that down a little. Also, Jonathan, you were trying to tell us about Trustee Nagel's seat and the election sequencing of that seat. Could you explain that again? Because I was confused with that.
Sure. So one of the goals is to get one trustee per area as soon as reasonably possible while everyone still serves out their full term. So for example, just looking at map 4, I'm not sure who trustee who resides in map 4 in area 4 whose term expires in 2024. If another board member happened to also live in that area and that board member's term expired in 2022, we would not make trustee area 4 open for election in 2022 because there already is a board member there. And if we made that area open, you'd be unnecessarily forcing another area to have no board member. Now, it doesn't work out perfectly here because of where everybody lives, but eventually by 2024, there will be one board member per area. The reason that Trustee Nagel's spot on here, I believe that he's the southernmost trustee 2024 on the map, and that is because he is filling a 4-year seat that started in 2020 and ends in 2024. But the way the law works on filling vacancies, since he's filling it in the first 2 years, there will be an election in 2022 for someone to serve the remaining 2 years of that seat. Could be Trustee Nagel, could be somebody else. And so because that seat was not part of the trustee area system at the time that it was filled, just like all of your seats are not part of that system yet, it's open to anybody. And so we don't want to consider necessarily where Trustee Nagel lives now, because on one hand, it's possible Trustee Nagel may not be on the board anymore, or it's also possible that someone somewhere else in the district might be serving for the remaining 2 years of the 4-year term that was vacated relatively recently. So long story short, that is a seat that is open for the district wide in 2022 to finish the 4-year term that expires in 2024. And so because of that, we don't want to say, like looking at scenario 4, for example, we don't want to say that Trustee Area 5 shouldn't have an election until 2024, because it's possible that in 11 months, there would then be no trustee in that area at all, because there could be somebody living anywhere in the district serving the remainder of that 4-year term. So because of that, we've kind of excluded considering the appointed seat that is still open for an election for the last 2 years. I know it's convoluted, but basically when someone fills a vacancy in a 4-year term impacts whether they serve for the rest of the term, or whether they only serve until the next election, in which case then the rest of the term is open. The only exception to that is if nobody runs for a seat, when the board fills a vacancy that way, that person is appointed as if elected for the 4-year term. So if, let's say, Trustee Area 1, let's just say Trustee Area 1 is open for election in 2022 and nobody runs, the board would appoint someone who lives there, and that person would serve for 4 years because there was no election. It's called a failure to elect. But if someone were to win and then resign, you'd go through the same process of filling a vacancy, and then depending upon when that vacancy occurs, if it occurs in the first 2 years, and there's very pinpointed law on whether it's with 6 months before an election or 4, but bottom line, more often than not, if it's in the first couple of years, there'll be an election halfway through to finish the filling of that seat.
Okay, thanks. You're right. Very convoluted. Patrick, you got that?
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right.
One quick thing. There was a couple of comments about the census. And yes, the map that is ultimately adopted and then the county approves of it will serve as the district's map until the next census, at which time the board will be obligated to look at the 2030 census on whichever map the board picks and check out to see if you still have population balance under the 10% variance. If you do at that point, you can reapprove the same map. If you don't, you have to make adjustments to the boundaries so that you get under the 10% variance so that the map is still valid. It's slightly different than what cities and counties have to do, which require redistricting commissions. That's not the case for school districts, at least as of right now. It is simple as review, see if there's still balance. If there is, great. If there's not, tweak your current map or then current map, and then go from there. And another reason why we use the census is because that's the day of the year, every decade, that we know exactly how many people in that moment live in the district. There's no estimating, there's no guesses. I mean, to the best that they can get folks to participate in the census. So throughout the decade, folks can move in, folks can move out. Some probably already have since the census was taken. The law says, just like with Congress, you roll with it until the next election, because that's how you guarantee you know who was there on that day.
Jonathan, should we speak to the fact there was a comment about including new families who have moved to the area since the census was taken, and the requirement that we have to use the census data? I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Absolutely. So in terms of where a line on the map is drawn, Justin has to use the census data so we know how many people are in each area per the census. That said, if you happen to know that there is new construction or an influx of people in a certain area, you can intentionally underpopulate that area a little bit because there's actually more people that live there, but you still have to stay within the 10% variance. So if there was we'll just pretend there's a giant apartment complex comes in somewhere that came in this year, so it's after the census, and I don't know, 100 new families moved in there. That would potentially shift the balance. You can make that area have the smallest number of people based on the 2020 census because you know there's really more. But you still have to keep whatever we do pick has to be within the 10% variance based on the census. So you can sort of hedge if you really want to think that there's kind of to prevent massive change in 2031. But legally speaking, following the census is the kind of the best, most accurate way of knowing. And again, people move in and out of places all the time. You know, Congress, the state doesn't redistrict every year. It doesn't redistrict every time somebody moves in or moves out. So the kind of the best way that we do this without it getting out of control is every decade.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. Well, thank you. And now we will move on to our next item, which will be presentation of the Educator Effectiveness Program.
Yes. Assembly Bill 130 was passed by the legislature, and it establishes an Educator Effectiveness Block Grant. Each district gets a lump sum of money that can be used over a 5-year period. In order to utilize these funds, you need to complete what's called the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant Plan. And that plan needs to come to the board 2 times before December 30th. So it's being presented tonight as in a presentation form, and will come back to the board for approval at the next board meeting. You can see in your agenda, you did have this as an attachment, and there are 10 areas that the funds can be used for. 9 of those areas are actually relevant to our school district. The 10th one is about childhood education and childhood development, utilizing it on that. So what we've done is we will be receiving $450,377 over, and those funds can be used as the plan shows. We can begin to use those funds this year, and we can continue to use those funds through the 2025-26 school year. What we did for these was that you can see that the planned use of funds are pretty general. It does match the professional development areas that have been identified as focuses for our district. And it's allotted a general amount of money. Now, as I said, that it's a plan today, and then you'll approve it at the next board meeting. But this plan can be changed at any time. So that's why it's pretty general at this point. It leaves it open for the district and the board to alter this plan as we move through the years, and we can make changes at that time in the amounts and the focus areas of each of the areas. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about that? Questions? Hi, Julie.
I was just wondering when the professional development would take place.
It can happen at any time during the year. We do have 2 professional development days that happen at the beginning of the school year. One's a district day and one's a site day. And then there also is another day in October in our calendar. And that's been pretty traditional over the years that we have those 3 days. So it can happen on those days, but it can also happen on common planning time, although our schedule this year doesn't allow for much of that. But in the past, our schedule has had common planning time, so it could happen during those times, or it could also be during release days. So any of those times can be used for these funds. It's pretty wide open. It just has to fall under these broad categories.
Any other questions? And then we'll open it up for public comment. Any public comment on this item? Okay, so
we have a couple hands raised.
Yeah, do you want to go ahead and I think any other public comment?
Yeah, let me just.
You want to go ahead and bring them in?
You want to do the full 3 minutes or?
Yeah, we have two speakers. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm just switching timers. All right. First speaker, Leah Woody. Second speaker, Rachel Ambrose. Leah, I'm going to go ahead and let you in and start the clock, and I'll start the screen share in a second. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't get, Tony, were you showing slides? I didn't see any slides.
No, it's the attachment on the agenda on the item.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Rachel.
Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Awesome. All right. So this is Rachel Ambrose. I'm a social science teacher at West County High School. I'm just calling in tonight to draw your attention to what wonderful news this opportunity represents for our district. I noticed that the grant includes funding in Part 9 for professional development for implementing ethnic studies in preparation for its adoption as a graduation requirement beginning in the 2025-2026 school year. While many school districts in the state might be scrambling to figure out how they can adopt ethnic studies as a graduation requirement, we are already well positioned to do so. West County High School has been a pioneer in this area in Sonoma County, having offered an ethnic studies elective on both the El Molino and Annalee campuses since 2017, something to be proud of. We currently have 3 sections of ethnic studies at West County High School, and multiple members of our staff have experience and expertise teaching this course. I strongly urge you to look at the resources you already have within the district, your current staff, before going to outside consultants when looking to how to do this professional development, specifically for ethnic studies. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments. And that concludes public comment.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. Any additional comment? Oh, okay. Let's go. I think Jeannie had her hand up first, and then we'll go Angie and then Jolie.
I just wanted to say thank you to Rachel for speaking up and stating that. And I just want to say how proud I am that we have our ethnic studies program and how popular it is. And thank you, Rachel, for your spearheading work in having that happen. So thank you.
Angie?
Tony, did you write this grant?
Yes, I did. Yes.
It's
a grant that comes from the state that all districts are getting. I wrote out the specifics of each of them, but we didn't write a specific application for the grant. So
right. Yeah. No, I just know in the past you're great about writing grants. So I just want to thank you. All of this looks great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel Ambrose, for speaking up to reiterate.
Jolie?
I just wanted to say thank you to Rachel also for bringing up the point that when teachers develop and work on a curriculum like this, I think it's much more meaningful and appropriate for the school in which it's being given. So I think that's a great idea for the teachers to be able to work on that curriculum on their own or possibly with the help of someone else. But I really like that idea.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment? All right, well, thank you all. And that concludes our agenda items tonight, but I did want to offer a point of clarification just with the first item around the action that was taken this evening related to the school name. Just to clarify, all of our previous discussions have talked about that action happening next year. So we're not talking about the current school year. And I just wanted to say that just to remind people where we're at in the process and what that means for current year versus next year. Any questions about that? Okay. Well, I think that concludes our meeting for this evening. We have a few items listed for future agenda items. Any other agenda items that the board members would like us to consider? Go ahead, Angie.
I'd like to create a discussion item to discuss the mascot and colors.
Okay. Any other discussion or action? It's future agenda items. Okay. All right. Thank you. We will move to adjourning. Thank you.